little while playing there. And I gave him, he met and discussed the transition. And so this is how, yeah. So it shows you that things can be done in a civil way. And I think they were just perfect models of civility in the neighborhood. I think a lot of people thought there was a lot of disruption. There was. But then I think that the community needs to be commended because this was somewhat unique and unusual. And except for one incident. And that was an incident of adjustment. Everything went well.
Well, can we talk to you real quick about them?
Yeah.
Packing up and going on to the next phase?
Raymond H. Boone, R-A-Y-M-O-N-D-H, Boone, B-O-O-N-E.
Talk to us about the camp that's been set out here. We'll start at the beginning. What made you want to take them in? What made you want to?
Well, number one, I'm just delighted that the occupiers accepted our invitation to come to our front lawn. It was not a favor of ours. It was an obligation. When we saw that the occupiers were unceremoniously evicted from Kanawha Plaza, we had no alternative than to invite them to our lawn because of the strategic location. And it reminded my good neighbor about the importance of the First Amendment, about the importance of economic justice, and about the importance of democratic principles. So we think that they have triumphed in sending that message daily and keeping these important issues on the front burner.
No, what happens from here? They said they would pack up. Do you have a message for them as they move on? What would you like to know?
Of course, where a transition does not mean the end of the movement. All you have to do is recall the civil rights movement from Montgomery to Birmingham to Richmond to Washington, D.C. So the movement does not end. It will continue. And I think a good example of that is the fact that Time magazine recognized the protester as the person of the year, which shows that the people are rising up and they're saying that 1% will not continue to rule and exploit the 99%.
Mr. Boone, what are your hopes for them now? They're, of course, leaving your yard, but they're still making their presence known throughout the city. What are you hoping they'll do next?
Well, I think they will continue the education process in terms of not letting government forget that Richmond is the capital of poverty in Virginia. I think they have attracted tremendous attention at the city, state, and federal level. Yesterday, on Sunday, when the mayor had a party at his home, guests at those levels visited our lawn and conversed and even congratulated the occupiers for their work and standing up for what's right.
And we see the police car here. I guess that's at least one's here all day, all night. Do you think there's a need, or what?
No.
What's kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, it works two ways. I think it also protected the occupiers, and we are pleased with that. The police officers have been remarkably professional. They have been remarkably courteous, and they have been remarkably fair-minded and understanding of what the occupiers are all about. And I also think the community deserves a lot of credit. Number one, as I've said before, we've had no real incidents except for one adjustment incident in the beginning, but after that, the community reacted and responded remarkably well, and we're pleased about that.
What was that one thing?
Well, there was one incident wherein there was one neighbor who made an attempt to run over a couple of our occupiers, but I did not witness that. That was a report.
Okay, when they first started.
When they first started.
Oh, okay.
Now they're talking about going into phase 2. You sort of taking part in phase 1. Will you also take part in that second
Well, let me
phase?
say this, that I've always taken part in efforts, campaigns for economic justice, for freedom, and for America living up to its promise. So this is really nothing new for me. So we will continue. It's just encouraging that we have other partners for justice. So it's a continuation of what my wife and I and our family have stood for, along with the free press, for all of our lives.
Now, Mr. Reed, did you ever receive that petition that the mayor talked about?
Yes, we received it, I think it was 3 weeks after they promised it. But here again, we should look at that in a very positive light in terms of their taking advantage of their First Amendment rights. And it is our hope that that experience and their education about their First Amendment rights will be a cause to continue community involvement in issues that impact my neighbors.
Okay, great. Is there anything else you want to add about today?
No, you can bring my wife. Maybe she knows to say. Yeah.
Where do we stand right now? We know that there's going to be a new location, a movement, I guess.
So what's going on right now is that we are intentionally and intelligently closing down this particular camp. We are going into the winter. There are some concerns about health and safety for people being able, through the winter, and there's more productive things that we could do with our time than spend keeping ourselves warm and safe through the winter. And so we're closing down the camp and refocusing our energies towards other things, other forms of direct action. And we're declaring a lot of victories. We've brought huge attention to class and issues of class in the United States, here in Richmond, but across the country. We're a part of a huge nationwide movement. We've seen the ability for discourse on subjects that just weren't even a part of the collective understanding change and become. I'm not being very clear here. We've seen discourse.
Email link to that, I can see where it is.
Okay.
We've seen this discourse grow and become a part of the American lexicon, and it's exciting.
Is there, we were talking off camera, is there a location set for, the new encampment?
No. So what we're doing now is we're shifting into phase 2. And so occupation here in Occupy Richmond and across the country, the idea of occupation has shifted some away from being an identity of what this movement is about towards being one of many direct actions that this movement can take part in, which I think is highly intelligent, because occupation as a direct action is an extremely important tactic for bringing a huge amount of attention to subjects, but occupation...
These.
We're moving into phase 2, so we're closing down occupation as, again, an identity, and using that now as a form of direct action among many forms of direct action that we can use as tactics to bring attention to subjects, to put pressure on the right people to make change happen, and that kind of a thing. We're getting more organized. This is a process of getting more organized, and we're moving into what we're calling phase 2 of the occupation of Occupy Richmond.
I guess one thing that I noticed when I was looking at your press release, you guys have done, up to this point, a lot of talking, and you even acknowledge, just bringing part of that discussion out. Is this phase more like shifting a little more into doing? You know, because you're talking about projects that you can be involved in. You know, is that kind of, to simplify it into one word, talking to doing, or adding that to your?
Yes, I would say that. I know that we've been doing, in addition to talking, for a long time now. Again, when we were at Kanawha Plaza, while we were here, we've housed people, we've fed people who didn't have homes, people who couldn't get food. We've done that from the beginning. We have, I mean, creating a discourse across the country is a form of doing. We do a lot of talking, but we also are doing a lot of doing. We're doing a lot of co-education amongst ourselves. We're educating ourselves. We're educating other people. Those are all forms of doing. But if you're asking, are we about to get involved strategically in specific campaigns to win things? Yes, that's what we're about to start doing a lot more of. And what the timeline is right now is that we're spending the next 3 weeks until January 7th doing a community organizing listening campaign where we're going to be speaking with individuals and community leaders across the Richmond community, listening out further, listening amongst our own group, and asking the questions: what are important, what is pertinent, what is hurting you, what is hurting our community, what are the problems that need to be addressed. And then we're going to get together at a General Assembly on the 7th and present all of those ideas and come up with a long laundry list of the things that need to be worked on. And then we're going to start breaking those down into what we really want to focus on in 2012. Send that to a small group, whoever wants to be a part of it, because that's our process. But one of the things that we're learning as we get more organized is that there are some things that are extremely hard to do in groups of 100 people, and there's some things that work better when smaller groups are together. So, but that group will help tailor some language based on what the entire group has come up with by listening to the community around what we need to focus on as a part of our strategic campaign. And then on the 8th of January, we're going to identify and agree upon what our strategic plan is for 2012. Could be anywhere from 2 to 10 different points, which are going to be specific campaign points that we're going to work on throughout 2012 that really work to accomplish goals that are accomplishable. We've chosen that timeline specifically because it's before the Virginia People's Assembly and before the General Assembly here in Richmond.
And I actually just have one or two questions. Is it difficult to continue? You know, you're having to begin again. So does that make things even more difficult?
I mean, it's going to take a bit of energy to break down this camp because we have been here for a long time. Other people have been living here. There's actually a lot of people who have already done that process. We had 6 people move out last night and take all of their personal stuff, and people are flooding in now to help over the course of the day. Like I said, the U-Haul's arriving at 10. There's a lot of people who are at work, so they'll come in when they can come. I'm working, so I'm here for a little while, and then I'm going to leave. So people are going to be coming in throughout the day, helping to close down camp throughout the day, and then we'll be off. And that's certainly a good amount of energy invested just to move this once. But we've gotten way more organized this time than the last time, and we're not being raided, which is helpful. So it's all going to be well organized. We're putting it away in a storage unit. It's going to be well organized for whenever we decide to occupy again. That moment will be easy because everything will be boxed up, ready to go, easy to deploy.
So right now there's no physical location where you will occupy?
We are not intending to physically occupy as of tomorrow.
Okay.
But occupation will take place again as a form of direct action.
One thing that, I mean, obviously you guys are part of the larger nationwide, worldwide Occupy movement. But one thing, Occupy Richmond, I think I've noticed has really kind of almost set itself apart. You guys have been, frankly, talking to some of my other friends in the press, a little more organized, especially even in handling trash. And I mean, you guys did a pretty good job of keeping Kanawha Plaza clean.
We did a great job of keeping Kanawha Plaza clean.
Is that something that you guys, being a good neighbor, I guess, is really taking care of what you have? Is that something that you're proud of the Occupy Richmond movement itself?
I would definitely say that's part of one of the victories that we've had as a movement. It's not to say that there haven't been some tensions with some of our neighbors, like the mayor, for example, while we've been here. But police have never been called for noise reasons. We never got serious complaints for being here. We did have some of our members that were put in danger by one of the neighbors who was driving down the driveway once, which was disconcerting and frightening for us. But ultimately, there's never been a single incident that I really know of while we've been here. And it's it's a camp, so there's definitely things that go into that, and there's trash that's produced. But we've absolutely done everything we can to try and be good to this land, to be good to our extremely gracious host, Mr. Boone, who's welcomed us into his home several times, and been just an incredible person to work with. We're very grateful.
Thank you so much.
Harry Hancock, and I am the third.
All
That's
right.
a difference for my dad.
The third.
Yes.
Sounds good. So tell me what y'all's plans are now. You guys are packing up this morning, and what's the next step?
We're going to take a few weeks to reorganize within our own collective, and then be back doing our thing, trying to get the message out and get some actual change going.
So a few weeks, is this just kind of a break with the holidays and
About
traveling?
About 3 weeks. A lot of our people are VCU students, so they deserve to be home with their parents.
And is part of it because winter's coming and the weather's obviously getting colder and
I'm sure that had a factor for some of the people in GA for their voting, but as far as I'm concerned, it wasn't a factor for me. I'm a Eagle Scout and used to the cold.
okay. And you guys have been out here for a month already, and how has it been with Mr. Boone being your host and everything else?
He has been a wonderful, gracious host, and I applaud him completely for his help.
And what are some of your plans? We got in the press release, some other events you might have, or as far as outreach projects downtown. What are you hoping to do?
That's a good question. I haven't actually seen our press release, sadly.
Okay. What, like from here, you guys are meeting today. Mr. Boone's going to talk a little bit. Any ideas? Are you going to occupy another place in the next few weeks? Or?
After the reorganization, we'll see. I'd love to personally, but we've got to make sure that we do this as on the up and up, in my opinion. So.
Tell me what you feel about having a police presence here 24 hours a day.
Honestly, I think it's a waste of taxpayers' money. Obviously, we're a peaceful protest, so the idea that we're going to be rabble-rousing or violating his property if he asks us not to is just absurd. I question the funding for it, if it's really worth their time. Also, if you didn't know, Mr. Boone or Mr. Jones has been living in a hotel for the last month, so I wonder who paid for that. Is that the city or is that him?
How'd you know that?
I have my sources.
Okay. Yeah, we saw him earlier this morning, so
Yeah.
coming and going. Okay, so what do you think? How do you think the police have handled this? With that incident that happened last month.
I think that the police officers are doing their job. I don't think all of them agree with what they're doing. I can speak to say that when I was arrested in Canal Plaza, the police officers were extremely polite and nice, and they're just doing their jobs, and we're just doing what we have to do. So that's all there is to say about it.
Okay. And since they did mention doing some outreach projects or kind of working downtown, why is that important, or why is that something that you guys had talked about?
It's important because if we don't win hearts and minds, we don't get our movement across.
And even though you guys are leaving here, does that mean that you're going to be leaving the whole Occupy movement? Or tell me a little bit about that.
As long as there's an Occupy, there are going to be occupiers. I think Richmond is a great example of we're just reorganizing. Obviously, we couldn't stay here forever with the legal action being taken against Mr. Boone. We knew that, so we're just trying to make sure that when we come back, we have a good plan, but we're not going anywhere.
Okay.
Has it been worth it to you, and why?
Say that a little louder.
Has this been worth it to you, and why?
Has it been worth it to me?
Do you feel like you've accomplished anything?
I think that I've gotten the conversation started. To me, that's more important than anything. And even if it doesn't go all the way to a national change in policy, getting the conversation started is just as important to me.
Have you been camped out here? I noticed you walked up. Do you have a tent or have you been out here?
I have not had a tent, but I have had the opportunity to cook many a meal here, or at least two. I'm not sure if you saw the shopping cart over there. Last night, 2 nights ago, I actually made a shopping cart turkey, smoked turkey in a shopping cart, and fed it to a senator and a congressman, things like that, which, if nothing else, is extremely amusing.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, I guess the mayor had a nice little party over there.